All right, just moments ago, President Biden delivered his first remarks to the nation following the election of Donald Trump. The short speech emphasized a peaceful transfer of power while also calling on the country to find unity following the election results. Let's take a listen to that.
The soul of America, since our very founding, has always been an ongoing debate and still vital today. I know for some people, it's a time for victory, to state the obvious. For others, it's a time of loss. Campaigns are contests of competing visions. The country chooses one or the other. We accept the choice the country made. I've said many times, you can't love your country only when you win. You can't love your neighbor only when you agree. Something I hope we can do, no matter who you voted for, is see each other not as adversaries, but as fellow Americans. Bring down the temperature.
Bring down the temperature. CBS News Chief White House correspondent Nancy Cordes joins us now to break all this down for us. The tone, Nancy, seemingly optimistic there. What do you think his key message was?
His key message, Liz, was that this is a temporary setback and that for those Americans who see this as a time of loss, that it is, A, not going to go on forever, and B, that a lot of the legislation that his administration was able to get passed in the previous 4 years will only continue to bear fruit over the next few years as more of that money gets spent, as more of that legislation gets implemented. So he argued that what his administration has been able to achieve will have long-lasting effect. It's basically sort of the best spin he can put on it, knowing that if Republicans do control the White House, the Senate, and possibly the House as well, that they will work to try to undo some, if not much, of the legislation and executive orders that he has worked to put in place over the past 4 years. And Nancy, a lot of finger pointing going on today among Democrats about how they got to this point. The president had this to say about his conversation with Vice President Harris. Let's take a listen to that.
I also spoke with Vice President Harris. She's been a partner and a public servant. She ran an inspiring campaign, and everyone got to see something that I learned early on to respect so much, her character. She has a backbone like a ramrod. She has great character, true character. She gave her whole heart and effort, and she and her entire team should be proud of the campaign they ran.
Of course, there's a lot of discussions happening behind closed doors right now. How much work is ahead for Democrats, Nancy?
Well, it depends on how much work they want to do. There are some Democrats who are calling for a large-scale soul-searching amid party leaders about what exactly went wrong here and what they need to do to win back the soul of working class voters in this country. And then there are others who argue that they were simply facing some insurmountable headwinds. The fact is that here in the U.S., just like all over the world, there was a surge in the price of basically everything post-pandemic, 25%. And even though inflation has now come down, they argue that Americans are just deeply frustrated by the fact that life costs a lot more than it did 4 years ago, and that they were voting with their pocketbooks and showing their frustration by switching parties. And so what you see right now is sort of a variety of views, as you would expect among those who are part of the losing party, to try to figure out what exactly this loss tells them about the state of the party and its strength, and how much work they need to do to take stock going forward if they want to try to regain control of the White House in 4 years.
Yeah, the president's address, Nancy, today, definitely a message of hope. He called on the public, though, to keep fighting for democracy. Let's take a listen to that.
Setbacks are unavoidable, but giving up is unforgivable. Setbacks are unavoidable, but giving up is unforgivable. We all get knocked down, but the measure of our character, as my dad would say, is how quickly we get back up. Remember, a defeat does not mean we are defeated. We lost this battle. The America of your dreams is calling for you to get back up. That's the story of America for over 240 years and counting. It's a story for all of us, not just some of us. The American experiment endures. We're going to be okay, but we need to stay engaged.
Definitely a message of moving forward. What's the strategy here for the Biden administration, Nancy, ahead of the inauguration?
I think they are still figuring that out, Liz. When it comes to the transition, they've made it clear that they will do everything they can to help the incoming Trump team. President Biden has invited the president-elect here to the White House. Vice President Harris, in her speech yesterday at Howard University, said the same. She said she'll do anything she can to help ensure a smooth transition. But beyond that, what this party is going to look like in the minority, how they are going to deal with the fact that Republicans have so much power in Washington, that is something that is still being worked out, and it depends in part on how the Republicans handle being in the majority. Republicans have gotten pretty used to being in the minority here in DC over the past few years. So what's their approach? How responsibly do they govern? Do they listen to some of these voices today who are calling openly for retribution against Democrats and against perceived enemies once Republicans had power? Or do they decide to govern more like mainstream Republicans? I think that's going to dictate how Democrats decide to handle themselves in the minority in the months and years ahead. Nancy, you've been working so hard this week. I hope you finally get some rest here in the coming days.